pick up your singing. There we go. All right, go live. All right, hi everyone. Let us know that you're here. Let us know that you can hear us. Today we're talking about a lot of things. We have quite a list on the docket of what we want to address. So let's drag this over here and start talking about it. We dropped a lot. We dropped a message in our public group and on the DNC Marketing Facebook page asking what people thought the difference was between an upsell sequence, a welcome sequence. Basically, like, should those two things be combined or do they have to be separate? And we got a lot of responses from our public members, from people who were drifting through our page and everything, and we got some interesting input. And we even got another copywriter to weigh in on her opinion of it. So we're excited to get into these comments and let you know. But as you join in, let us know that you can hear us, let us know that you can see us, and let us know your opinion. Do you think a welcome sequence and an upsell sequence can be combined? And when would that happen? So we have a few points on this that we're going to dive into, and then we want to hear from you. So how long should an email sequence be? Should we start here or should we start with the comments?
I guess we can start here.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay, so how long should an email sequence be? This is actually going to tie into the next point, which is depending on your customer's personality type, it will depend on whether you do more of a hard sell or a soft sell. So how long should, let me address that part, in my opinion, right? So this is where you're going to really see the idea of the customer personality type take hold, because Darian and I were quite literally just arguing this. We were like right before we turned on the camera. So Darian is very much into the idea or the concept of the know, like, and trust factor, which is something that is parroted amongst tons and tons and tons of people, right? That is going to be...
So we have... Sorry.
Darian is...
There we go. I just want to make sure I don't miss any comments. Okay.
Okay. That is something that is beneficial for those that are more like golden retrievers, something along those lines. Maybe probably even beavers as well, because they need a lot of proof.
Right.
Then you have the other side, which is like the lion otter type. Now the otter is just generally very trusting because they're high energy. They constantly want motivation. The lion is very much somebody that wants to just get it done, get it over with. They're the kind of person that just goes to the mall, buys what they need, walks out the door. They don't care if it's on sale. They don't care how nice the salesperson was. They just want to get it, get out, done.
Right.
They don't want to meander and walk around.
Go ahead.
Okay.
we get really excited about this because, like Julio said, like we butt heads on it, and it shows that personality difference. So the email length is going to depend on who your customers are and what they're there to buy, what they're there to learn from you, what the purpose is for them being on your email list.
Yeah. So, like, for example, myself, if I'm buying like a physical product, because of course there's multiple businesses to consider. If you're blogging, if you're a YouTube star, whatever,
memberships,
Right.
products, whatever.
But let's just assume just general e-commerce. You sell T-shirts, for example. So if I go to a company because I like their T-shirts or their jeans or, again, whatever, all I'm really wanting to do is I'll get maybe a welcome email that's like, hey, thank you so much for joining us. Here's discount code or whatever that I signed up for, or, again, whatever the case is. And then from there, hey, CK. And then from there, that's pretty much it. Like, I don't need the idea of you to be like, so when I first started this business, here's my story about how I hit rock bottom, and then I became this entrepreneur that wanted to design T-shirts that had Mickey Mouse, on them. Like, I'm just like, it doesn't, I don't care, doesn't matter to me. I just want to give me that discount code, let me buy the shirt, don't bother me again unless you have like a really cool design.
Yep, and that's the lion personality there. And for me, the golden retriever type, I need that story. I need to be able to make a connection with a brand that is significant for me. If there is no significance for this brand, you wash away in the sea of other jewelry brands, t-shirt brands, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So having that story there, not just the brand message, which I think we've addressed before and we will definitely address again, not just having that brand message and that transformation that you promised me there, but knowing that you have a story that ties into that as well is incredibly important to me. I cannot differentiate a brand, I cannot value a brand without knowing that there is some kind of emotional significance and having a connection to that.
And then I don't need to value a brand.
Yeah.
Like, that's where the DNC personality sales system comes into play, right? And in the branding masterclass that we actually just finished, and we're going to be releasing here in a few days, we actually talk about the 5-week test that we've kind of established when it comes to social media to make sure you're talking to the right people. Because if you aren't, if you have that know, like, and trust 6-part introduction email series, blah blah blah, but you're selling to me, I'm never buying from you. I don't care. I'm just going to unsubscribe from you immediately. You already lost me, right? You're selling to someone like me, and that's like, hey, here's your discount code. Hope you enjoy this. Let us know if you have any questions. We'd love your feedback. Bye. Yeah. And you're selling to her, though, if that, then that's not going to work for her, because she feels like, okay, so you don't care about me. You didn't want me to actually buy from you, whatever the case is.
Well,
right?
yeah, more than that, I won't attach an emotional, like, I won't be affronted that you're not giving me a story. I just won't remember you.
Right.
I'll just never come back because you didn't give me a reason to come back. You didn't tell me anything that made me interested. Like, let's use an example, if I can tangent just for a little bit.
Okay.
I won't take too long. Like, I'm obsessed with Lush. And the reason for it is because there's an entire experience that goes behind Lush products and walking into a Lush store and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And they have an entire story about where they came from and the charities that they're involved with, and like redoing all of the farmland in Brazil to make it more inhabitable and natural. Like, there's so much that goes on behind it, not just like all natural skincare.
Actually, that's a perfect example because I'm the one that introduced her to Lush, right?
His fault.
And I'll tell you the reason. So here's my thing. I got a tattoo on my chest. It was my very first tattoo. So I was very nervous that I was going to somehow screw it up. So I went into Lush, and because I heard, all natural products. I was just walking through the mall. I saw it. And I was like, oh, I want to get some shampoos and just soap. Bathing stuff. Yeah, soap. Yeah, there you go.
Such a guy.
So I just needed something but I wanted it to be gentle, right? All natural, because I was, again, worried that the tattoo was going to fade or the ink was going to come off or I was going to somehow screw it up. Excuse me, sorry.
So, when you walked in, you got the jelly.
Let me finish my story. Okay. So, got a tattoo. Got it. Yeah. So I walked in, and the lady did the same spiel she was going to do with everybody, right? Which is, hey, welcome to Lush. Have you ever been here before? And I said, no. And she goes, which is very normal, right? And she goes, great. Well, let me tell you a little bit about us. And I said, no. I don't care. Don't want it. Do you have anything that would feel nice? Because, the tattoo is a little sore, blah, blah, blah. And she just goes, oh, yeah, sure. What about this thing? And she just shows me, she lets me wash my hands with it and stuff. And it's like a jelly soap thing. And I was like, so this will work. All natural. Yeah. Yeah. I was like, all right, cool. Ring it up. It was like maybe 4 whole minutes that I was in that store. I walked out, showed Darian. I was like, oh yeah, look at this. This is kind of neat little thing. And then I took a bath with it and I liked it. From there, then we walked in together, and then Darian was like, exact same situation.
I immediately walked up to somebody and I said, tell me about the store. Like, that's the kind of person I am. Because, one, that's the beaver in me, right? I want to know all the details, and I want to know that this salesperson knows what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. That's where it started for me. So with a welcome sequence, with an upsell sequence, a nurture sequence, when somebody is first getting to know your brand, you need to have your message on point, because they're going to virtually walk up to you by subscribing. And the first things they're going to want to know are, what are you about? And your pitch better be airtight.
Right.
That has to do with personality, but it also has to do with understanding what your message is that you're getting across. Not just what you sell, but what does your brand represent with what you sell?
Yeah.
So she told me all about All Natural, all about where they came from, all about the charities and the stuff they're involved with. And then I asked her, I came in there with a purpose, saying I am looking for a new skincare regimen. And she showed me around to a lot of different things, and she got to know me personally. So all of those things need to be part of that nurture sequence as well.
Well, and let me make sure I say this. I'm not suggesting that just because you're selling to someone like myself that you just need to be like, hey, here's a discount code, shut up. I'm not suggesting that. There still needs to be a sense of trust established, but the difference can be a matter of a blog post of like 10,000 words versus me, which I just need to see a couple testimonials, and then like maybe your brand message could be literally like one sentence, like so and so shirt company, the best sports shirts on the net, whatever, right? The softest underwear, the this, the that.
Yeah, like
you know,
the MeUndies brand has a great tagline.
Right. It's just like I just need that, so I can see it. Then underneath it have, over over 1 million trusted underwear sold, or I don't know, whatever. Then Amazon review or whatever review, 5-star, 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 and then I'm buying. Like that's it. Right. That's all. And then like especially if it has like a 30-day money back guarantee, try it out. Well, hopefully not for the underwear, right? But still, like the idea is the same. And then I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I can figure this out. Go from there.
But notice, even a lion needed the brand message in there.
Yeah, just it's
because
small.
It needs that differentiator, right? What's the difference between this pair of undies versus any other pair of undies you could get? So
3 to 4 cans of sardines per week for great skincare.
Oh.
Ooh.
Okay.
Probably
CK's got a good tip there. So if you want great
high
skincare,
in omega 3s, probably.
And 6s, probably. But the point of that is like depending on the personality type. Back to the length of the email, which is what we started with. With a lion, it's going to be on the much shorter side. And especially for a lion and an otter, if you're writing text, I highly encourage you to start using video, right? Because you're going to be able to get a lot more across in a shorter amount of time. And for an otter and a lion, that is vital. If you can't get your message across, if you can't get your point across quickly with that personality type, you've lost them.
And make sure that it's make sure that you're putting one of the biggest hooks or intros or whatever your point across in the beginning, because even a 5-minute video at this point I'm like ready to click off of. I'm like, oh man, it's going to take 5.5 minutes.
Well, I've noticed a pattern. So like with those videos, if you're doing like how what's CK say?
Lions will be perceived as rude by most of us.
That's true.
That is true.
That's true.
There is that's what it that's why this came up in management, because when your personality type is lion, you're very much like a no bullshit type of person. You don't want to deal with it. This is your hours. This is what you work. I don't care if if blah, blah, blah. But you can't talk like that to people, right? You have to figure out the best way to interact with those that aren't your natural personality type. And that's where the business side of it comes into effect, and why I use that plenty of times in sales. See, I took the idea of the management aspect of it, and I turned that, kind of flipped it upside down and used it for more of a consumer standpoint. And that's how I became one of the top sales managers in the company. Even though my store itself was 10 times smaller than some of the bigger stores, I was still up there as far as sales numbers with all the big boys. And that was because what I did when I taught my people was when somebody talks to you, start to break that down and figure them out, right? As an example, I may be talking to one person. This was for when I first started as just a general salesman, right? When I first started with that one person, and they walk in, they go, hey, I need this, this, this. What's the cheapest you got? What you got in stock? My reply back was exactly the same. It was not, well, sir, first off, I would like to really thank you for coming in today. And gosh darn it, I just really appreciate everything you've done for, he doesn't care. He already lost. He's already turning around and walking away, right? So I'd be like, man, I'll tell you what, we got this, this, this in stock. Here's the price. Well, can you get it to me cheaper? Nah. Like, that was it. Like, well, I'll go somewhere else. See ya. Yeah. And to a lot of you, you're going to be like, well, that's a shitty salesperson. It's really not, because what ended up happening is that person was like, all right, fine, whatever. Like, seriously, it was like, whatever. Give it to me. Go.
Right.
And that was it. And then, of course, when somebody came in and they would say, hey, I'm looking for a blank for my son. I'm wanting to do this and I'm wanting to do that. And here's like the room layout, and I've just barely moved here, and here's this and here's that. Then I'd change my personality type, and I'd go a lot softer. And I'd start to talk, and I'd start to figure out who that person was, as an individual.
Share stories
What
about
was
your
their
family.
Right. What was their grandson's name? And oh my God, is he in football? And when did he arrive? And like, you know, like now you start to converse from there, and you're able to establish their version of, you know, like, and trust.
Right.
Right.
So that's why this is so very important, is because if you know who your customers are, this should be very easy.
Right.
Right? Because you understand not just their demographics. Everybody harps on how important demographics are. It's psychographics is what makes the difference here. It's knowing what makes your customers tick, what their concerns are, what they really like, what's their situation in life, and what is their ideal situation, right, which is not something people talk about a lot. But if you speak to someone's ideal situation or ideal hopes and dreams, that's where you start to pull them along in that journey.
Yeah.
So in that length, those lion otters, short with video, and then the golden retriever and beaver, they want more detail, they want more story and things like that. But it's tricky, right? Because you don't necessarily want a super long email.
Right.
You're still using video. Doesn't, regardless personality type, video is it's here. It's not in the future. It's right now. Use video. But also linking back to your website, which is also going to help with dwell time. It's going to help with traffic numbers. It's going to help with all kinds of different things, and help with moving the customer along that journey to get them to take a profitable action.
Yeah.
Like subscribe, like join you on social, buy. All of those things. If you've got a lot to say on a topic, especially, and you should for a golden retriever and a beaver, linking back to a blog post or a vlog or something like that to continue that is going to be very, very important. Yeah.
And just real quick to add to what Darren was saying in regards to video, it really is, like she mentioned, it is here. And right here, right now, it's actually one of the least expensive ways you can establish your advertising, especially if you're doing Facebook ads, because not a lot of people are comfortable getting in front of a camera. And I still am struggling with that. I'm still not comfortable like 100% with it. Slowly getting there, you know. But that is something that we are ramping up as far as advertising. We're trying to go a little bit away from the copy aspect and more into video, because it's a lot less expensive. Just because you don't have as many competitors.
Right.
Now, eventually that's going to, you know, catch up, because everybody's going to see it's a lot less expensive. Everybody's going to be like, all right, you know what, screw it. Let me just go ahead and get in front of the camera and I'll just figure this out. And so as that happens, now you have to figure out, okay, what's the next thing that's going to be the differentiator? And as of right now, I think the big, really inexpensive one is when you advertise on like stories, things like that, because again, same idea. No one's using them. They don't understand how to use them. They don't know if you should do pre-recorded or not, or blah, blah. You know, like it just becomes a bit of a hassle and a learning curve that a lot of people right now aren't interested in doing.
Right. So just as you'll have an advantage there if you start to poke around and get used to it. There's like a whole other episode we can do talking about those kinds of things. But right now, let's dig into like the meat of this, and let's pull up some comments too and talk about the differences, what y'all thought in the comments and things, the differences were between that nurture sequence and the upsell sequence.
Wait, before we get into that, can we just hit this one last little bit?
Okay, so multiple sequences depending on the opt-ins you have and the offers you have. So moving through, when you get somebody on your list, how many of you have a lot of opt-ins? Like, I have a 50% discount code. I've got this checklist. I've got a webinar sign up. I've got, you know, a live event interest sign up. How many of you have a whole bunch of different opt-ins, or do you only have one? Drop in the comments and let us know, because the point of that is that you can have a whole bunch of different sequences. Hey, you can have a whole bunch of different sequences that line up with those opt-ins and that speak to those opt-ins.
Yeah.
So again, depending on personality type, if you're trying to get more than one person, and this is what we teach in the course too, is that testing, you may find you have a 50-50 split between two pretty different personality types. And if you're only targeting one, you're leaving 50% of your money on the table. You can tailor opt-ins and landing pages to bring in both of those and then have sequences tailored to those different personality types.
And we've done that. And, you know, I won't lie to you, it's a decent amount of work. But the way I figure it is, if we're already doing this, I'd rather go ahead and just create another sequence. We can use one as the initial one as the swipe file, right? So we can pretty much copy and paste it onto another one. The only difference is maybe it needs to be a little bit shorter. Maybe it needs to have a little bit more fun. Maybe it needs to add a GIF or two that's, you know, silly. Like that's the biggest thing. So it's more work, but not a ton more work.
Yeah, you're not completely redoing it. You're editing it based on that personality. So if I took a If I took a golden retriever email and I made it a lion email, that is a little bit more work because I'm cutting a lot of the story out. I'm shortening the sentences. I'm inputting, a video, and then I'm redirecting. But if I'm going from a golden retriever to a beaver, now I'm taking out some fluff words and I'm adding some proof words. Like the editing in that aspect is very minimal. So,
Right.
I mean, it can be more work, but most of it is just slight editing. So once you understand what you want to say, like the work is done.
Yeah.
And you can create different things based on what you've initially created. More than that, once you get people on your list for the first time, now starts the fun part, right? Now starts the strategy. And are you going to nurture them first and then upsell them like bit by bit? Or are you going to upsell them right away, depending on personality type?
Yeah. And just so I'm clear on this, I'm not necessarily suggesting that, excuse me, I'm not necessarily suggesting that, I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
What were we talking about?
Choo choo.
I'm like a goldfish. It's hard.
So if we're going to get people on our list, are we going to nurture them first or are we going to upsell them right away?
No. Before that, I had a point.
I don't know.
What were we talking about?
But the point I was going to make...
Oh, it's so good.
The point I was going to make is that you can do both.
Ah, there it is. Okay. So, yes, you can do both, but you may not want to do both. So, as Darren was mentioning, if you have a 50-50 split, which is like never going to happen, right? It's going to be something like, for example, if you do the DNC Marketing Personality Sales System 5-week test, man, that's a mouthful. What you're going to find is that you're probably going to have a like 30% split for blank. Let's just say, I'll just go ahead and use personalities as an example. So 30% split for lions. Then you're going to have a 25% split for beavers. And that's pretty much, you should see comparable things together. And then everything else will start to dwindle. So my suggestion is that, especially if the numbers make sense like that, if you see that 55, 60, 70, 80% of the market is representative of just those personality types, just reflect your copy on those personality types. And yes, I understand that the idea is like, man, but I'm leaving possibly like 20% of the money on the table. If you have all the time in the world or can hire as many people as you need, then go ahead. Get that extra 20 as long as it makes sense, make your money. But if that extra 20 is going to be problematic, if it's going to, add tons of stress to your life, it's going to make you argue with your significant other, miss all your kids, wrestling practices and things like that, then forget it.
And if it's going to take you away from the majority of your target market as well.
Right.
If you are spread so thin that you're not addressing anybody properly, that's a problem because then you're not converting anyone.
Exactly.
And actually,
so
CK had an interesting point. But doing both, also, I'll let you get to those in a minute. Doing both can be beneficial, again, depending on personality type. Golden Retriever, nurture. Also depends on your business, right? If you have a blog, for example, and you don't really have much to sell or you're monetizing based on affiliate marketing or something like that, tons of nurture. If you're doing a membership and it's like a high ticket offer, you're going to have to do a lot of nurturing to get people there because there's a lot of trust that needs to be established before people are going to buy into that.
Yeah.
E-commerce, though, is you're going to start upselling pretty quickly. Nurturing is important, but you want to start upselling within that same sequence as well to start making making back that profit.
There you go. Okay, so let's, exactly, the 80-20 rule. So let's go ahead and hit some of these comments real quick, and then we'll talk about the comments from yesterday's post. Cool?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to skip some of the initial ones because we addressed them already from CK. Helen, hello. Okay, so Ellen, excuse me. You put, how do you know where to post them? Just so I'm clear, which did you mean by them? Because I know you wrote that a minute or two ago. And as I mentioned, mind of a goldfish. So I can't remember what I was talking about 2 minutes ago.
Probably social media. So
was it?
Yeah, how do you know where to post when you're testing? Maybe. And that goes into the 5-week
Let us know
system.
if that is what it is, because I'm not 100% on that. That goes into the 5-week personality sales system, which actually also goes into a little bit. Oh, she put different opt-ins.
Different opt-in. Oh, okay. So on your website, you don't want to bombard people with a whole bunch of different things, right? So there are a couple of different ways you can do this. Your website, if you have a pop-up or something, I highly recommend just like 1 or 2, because again, customer overload is a thing, and they will not make any decision at all. They won't sign up for anything if you hit them with too much. I would post on social media and get people to sign up that way. Then you can test a whole bunch of different opt-ins without cluttering, without confusion.
Well, if I can interrupt. So basically, what I think what Darian's really getting at is your homepage needs to be relatively clear, so have one opt-in, again, whatever that may be, discount code, whatever. But you can have a million landing pages.
Yeah, because nobody sees that unless you give them the link.
Exactly. It's like an unlisted YouTube video. Like, no one's going to see it unless you purposely give them the link. So create 100,000 of them if you want to. Every single thing that comes to your mind, you're like, that would be a cool idea. That would be a cool giveaway. That would be a cool checklist, ebook, whatever. Go ahead and create the landing page for it. You can use the same one, just change up a little bit of colors, change up the text, blah, blah, blah. You can save them in your Google Drive, in your Canva, whatever whatever it is. Then from there, you can create the paid ad on Facebook that directs to that landing page, which will then direct to get them into an email sequence of some kind, or again, depending on what the landing page is, will direct them to your home page. So it can kind of depend on what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. And from there, you can take those links, post them on social, have people share them around. If you've got some in your marketing budget, boost them. No, don't boost them, but create an ad with them to get some real traffic and see which one is getting the most traffic, so that you can then use that as your main opt-in.
All right. Let's, how do you, let's see. All right. Real quick, Ellen, I'm going to try to answer CK, and then we'll go right back. So CK put, so based on personalities, you don't need to do split testing, I'd assume.
It is split testing.
Yeah, exactly. So the DNC Marketing 5-Week Personality Sales System test is essentially split testing. It's split testing on steroids. What it is when people do split testing, what you'll see is normally people just say, test everything, right? Okay, so let me break down some numbers for you. There are technically, roughly, well, not roughly, there are 4 parts to like an ad. We'll just use an ad as an example. There's the creative, right? Picture, video, whatever. The headline, the thing that's supposed to catch their attention, that's copy related. The actual copy itself, and then the call to action.
And normally you see split testing as A/B testing as well. So it can be just 2, or, yeah, like Lou said, spaghetti against the wall.
Right. So what I'm getting at is, with those 4, if you, technically speaking, if you constantly switch those things around, because again, split testing is just, without determining what you want to split test, it's literally just throwing spaghetti on the wall, as Darian mentioned. So what you have essentially is 4 different things that can be interchanged or changed at any given point, and you're just kind of hoping that one of them works, right? So what that ends up being is 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, like 4 to the 4th power. So that's 256 possible combinations. Check my math. I think that's right, though. That's 256 possible combinations. If you post twice a week, that would take you
2.5, yeah.
Yeah, about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Till you actually, roughly, 2.5, 2.25, something like that. 2.5 years before you can technically hit every single combination to figure out, and that's just on one post, right? Because there's 4 different things that you can move around, and different calls to action you can use, and different colors, and different this, and different that. So what we do is basically, we took the idea of the split test, we used the personality sales system, or the management side of that, and then I used it for sales, blah, blah, blah. I already told you about all that. And we just put a name to it. So now everything is combined. So when I say lion, and this is something that's in the course, but for example, if I say lion, I know the kind of colors lions like. I know the kind of copy lions like. I know how they like to be spoken to. I know what my brand message should be. You know, like
image types.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you start to develop the idea of like, oh, okay, so whenever you're putting a name to something and then combining it into one thing. So instead of just, as Darian mentioned, throwing spaghetti at the wall and just being like, whatever, let me just try everything possible. Which is never a good idea, because you can't establish, it's almost like a scientific method, right? Yeah. You can't establish whether something actually has any statistical significance.
Too many variables.
If you are not having a consistent Exactly. And by the way, if you want to test for statistical significance, I would, like for your ads or whatever, I would use, what is that, Pearson's chi-squared method. But that's something to Google.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. And it's really important, the math side of everything. So let's get to, let's see. Alphonse says, I'd hit all personalities in one pitch, helping people efficient, specific for the information, needy, and fun. Usually a quick paragraph. So it is very difficult to hit all personality types with one single pitch. That's why we've kind of differentiated this so that you can test out and see who your strongest target markets are. Because if you try to hit all 4 personality types in one pitch, you're going to end up alienating everybody.
When you speak to everybody, you speak to no one.
Yeah. So that's why this is so important, is really the combination of these personality types is a person, a whole person here. And so by combining all 4 people into squished one individual, it's not like a real person. So it's kind of doing too much all at once.
And so let me make sure I also say this. Alfonso, I mean, if it's working, more power to you, do your thing, right? It might be able to work better if you're able to direct your message towards a more specific group, right? It's the same kind of idea as going to your Facebook Ads Manager account, creating an ad, and just saying, I want to target everyone that's 18 to 99 years old, male and female, any income, any household, any country. So now your ad is going out to 7 billion people, right? That's not good. Like, that's actually not good. You would think, like, oh shit, like the more people that see me, the better it is. But that's false. As far as like a total ROI is concerned, right? From there, what you actually want to do is break that down, right? You want to go significantly smaller. You want to go to where you're only targeting 10,000 people, you know, something like that. So that way your message, your everything is directly related more to people who are more than willing to buy from you, who enjoy what you do, enjoy who you are, that sort of thing, because those are going to be the people that establish that lifetime customer value.
Right. This, for relating to ads, this also goes into your budget, right? If you have all the money in the world to spend on 7 billion people's worth of ads, then you need to throw all of the money in the world into that kind of ad so that they see it. But if you only have like a certain budget, you need to narrow down your target market so that they see your ad and get brand awareness more than once, right? That study that's out there, it takes like between 5 to 8 times someone to see you for them to feel like they understand or they trust you. That's a thing. So with ads, you need to make sure you're targeting the hottest possible target market so that the more they see you, the hotter they get, the more likely they are to buy, and you do get that ROAS or ROI like Julio was talking about.
Exactly, because from there you'll end up doing retargeting options, and you know, you're getting those multiple touch points off of just those 10,000 people. You don't necessarily have to continue to get 10,000 new people every single time. You know, maybe 1,000 of them buy. Cool. Then the next part of that funnel can be a retargeting ad campaign that goes to the other 9,000 that didn't buy. Then from there, maybe 500 of them bought. Cool. Now you have a third level to that funnel where you can retarget them, and then from there you can retarget lookalike audiences. I mean, you know, there's a thing amongst that.
Ellen pointed out something that we get a lot, that we address a lot. And you're welcome, Alfonso.
Oh, there it is.
Right.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's kind of stupid. Like, ding. Okay. Ellen. Hi, Candace. Okay. Okay. I thought we were supposed to market to a particular ideal customer / avatar. Okay. So in a very real way, this is sort of establishing an avatar, because you're talking about a personality type, right? The problem with the avatar idea is that it's become oversimplified and it's become misunderstood. Mainly because the people that are selling you courses have never sold a damn thing in their lives, and that's just the reality. And I've actually run into a lot of people who, what they do is they come up with a theory behind it, or they'll tell me like, "Oh man, I am so good, I can sell ice to an Eskimo," or whatever, right? And these are the same people, and I swear I've hired so many people that say the exact same thing, and when it comes down to it, they are mediocre at best. They have to be trained, just like everybody else has to be trained to establish a proper sales technique. It's a 1 in a million shot that you are a natural born salesperson that just kills it all the time, that just instinctively knows when to ask for the sale, when to prospect, when to pull back, when to push forward, how to talk to them, how, like, I have run into those, but the difference is so big, and if you have the foundation to where, like, you do have those things, but maybe they're not all refined, that is when you can become like a super awesome sales rep. I have a gentleman named Richard that I trained a few years back, and that dude just,
he's a
sells
preacher.
Millions and millions and millions. Like, he is so good.
Yeah,
because he has that foundation from when he was in the church, and then from there I was able to talk to him about the personality sales system. I was able to talk to him about how to sell to customers, because it's a little different obviously than preaching. So that he was able to blow up. It was a big deal. He
right?
does really well.
But basically, right, some of the courses out there are telling you, and people who've made the course have never sold anything. Other people instinctively figured out who their target market was, the personality type they sell to, but they probably don't know that that's what they did. Right? They took a very long time through their entrepreneurial journey and figured it out, but they don't know how they figured it out. So they're teaching you how they made themselves successful, but there's a problem with the underlying, like, transformation of how that actually works with variables and all of the details behind it.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, and all I was really getting at is the idea of the avatar being oversimplified is that it has come down because everybody wants to sell you their course, and everybody wants to, get you to follow them on Instagram or whatever. It's come down to the idea of they want to oversimplify it so they can use the words easy. This is going to be easy. This is going to be simple. All you need to do is establish an avatar. Okay, great. Tell me, what is an avatar? What is your customer's avatar? Well, 9 times out of 10, the response you're going to get nowadays, before, it was different before, but now they're going to go, just think of your ideal. What does that mean? Like, they go, okay, so I want to sell to Mary. And now I'm creating a biography about Mary. She has 4 kids. She's in Minnesota. She likes to shop at Whole Foods. She enjoys tangerines on Sundays and looking out into the sunset. Like, that doesn't make any fucking... Oh.
He gets a little passionate about this.
It doesn't make sense from a sales standpoint.
Yeah.
Right? You have to... Our belief is psychographics over demographics.
Tested psychographics.
Right. You have to get in Mary's head. It's not about what kind of car she drives. It's not about where she wants to get her vacation home. It's about what Mary thinks, what she believes, what her fears are, what her anxieties are, what she's willing to pull out her credit card for. Because that's what you're going to want to talk about. You're not trying to manipulate her, but you are trying to figure out her psychographic, or you're trying to figure out her pain points, so that way you can speak to her in a way that will allow her to actually make a purchase from you.
Right.
And the difference between why that's not slimy is because as an individual, as an entrepreneur, that your product can help her.
Right.
Right. You don't want her to go somewhere else. Not because you're being a jerk, but because you know that you can provide the best customer service, you provide the best products at the best price, and that you actually care.
Yeah.
You don't want her to go to some random Joe Blow down the street who is going to be that guy, who's going to be the guy that says anything he can to get her to buy, and then when she says, hey, this wasn't what you promised me, he goes, tough shit, no refunds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. The difference is that you care. And that part of that brand message, right, coming right back to it, is the transformation and the emotional value you give as well. So if you think because you sell a luxury product, that you don't actually solve a problem, that's false. That is so very false. So, okay, I thought it was insanely specific. Right, Ellen, she did the... Okay, Alfonso, the avatar aspect didn't make sense to me. Customers change hour to hour, day to day, 100%. And when you understand those personality types, and once you really get to know them, you'll be able to pick out your customers like that. When you interact with them on social media, when you see them buying with you, when you get on these live webinars and talk to them, or these, any kind of lives, you'll be able to pick them out based on what they like, what they're saying, and then you can start to develop that pattern. You can start to develop that way of, getting across to your most common customer types.
And then CK put, this really helps me because I was discussing in another group that I work with everyone, men, women, children. They were trying to make me focus on either men or women, and it doesn't feel right to me. So now I've included photos of both men and women. Mm-hmm. And I think that's totally true. Here's probably the best example I can give you, and it's a really easy one. Have you ever in your life worked wherever, right? It doesn't matter if you were a dishwasher when you were 16 or currently one or whatever. Like, my point being that, have you ever worked anywhere in your life where you got along better with a different gender, with a different age group? I'm going to assume that case is probably, right?
Most of us have.
Most of us, and that's the idea behind psychographics versus demographics. Demographics, if you totally just go off that idea, there should not be friendships from somebody who's 20 and somebody who's 35.
Right.
There should not be friendships from somebody who's a man to a woman.
Or married and not married.
Right. Yet, here we are.
Right.
Right. Yet I've been called an old soul my whole life because everyone I get along with is in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even when I was in my early 20s. I didn't get along with people that were 18 and were like, hashtag YOLO, bro. Like, I hated it. I couldn't stand it. Yet, right, again, demographically, those should have been the people. Those are the market. That's what was targeted to me in advertising. But I didn't buy anything because I hated it. I wanted to start looking at, boat shoes and,
boat shoes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It wasn't my thing. Mm-hmm. So that's the easiest example I can give you in terms of why psychographics win out over demographics in my experience as both a salesperson and a sales manager for multi-million-dollar companies for years and years and years.
And since we brought it into DNC the last, year and a half, 2 years, the clients that we've worked with, there have been transformative experiences just in understanding this concept, right? And being able to write for them and create content and stuff for them or give them advice on what they need to do. The coaching calls that we have been on have been huge, massive aha moments just because they're like, okay, let me pull your teeth, let me pull all this information out of you and tell you what you're telling me.
Right.
Oh, suddenly it's very clear who you sell to.
Yeah.
Right? And then once that light bulb goes off, there's no stopping you at that point.
Okay, so we got past these, and feel free if you need to keep commenting. We'll get to them as we can. Also, make sure that you, if you find this information useful, you share, amongst friends, colleagues, the world. And then we'll go into, we have one before we get into other comments.
Well, just Ellen, it's more about what they think and feel, not where they live and what type of car they drive. Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's it. 100%.
See this? Wait. I can do it this way.
This way. Okay.
Does that work? There it is.
So we're trying to pull up an image of the comments we got in the group.
Hello.
Tamara is another one. I don't see it yet. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay, it's working.
Oh, okay.
So there's a bit of a delay. So hopefully you can see that. But we got lots of great stuff in the group and on the page from CK and from everyone. So Regine says, my gut says that they should be separate. This is in response to the question I posted about the welcome sequence versus an upsell sequence. Mm-hmm. So they can be separate. It really depends. Again, going back to what we've been talking about, depends on what your goal is. It can also be combined, though, depending on the personality type in the goal.
So, yeah, we were kind of talking about this, and we do need to wrap this up. So it's going to be very small, and if y'all want us to make another video over it, we can talk about it on Friday in our live Q&A if you have more questions. But generally speaking, basically, the sales process is a sales process. An objection, or I'm sorry, not an objection, base your sequence on an objective and not just segmenting the idea of your, whether it's a welcome or you're upselling or you're downselling. Because again, going through e-commerce, because I understand that every business is different. For example, if you're a blogger or whatever, you may not have all these things. But I like to think, as someone who sells and has sold in real life, I never stopped at a welcome, right? I never said, hey, how are you? Welcome in, and then turned around. And the sequence continues on. You overcome objections. You deflect objections as opposed to having to answer them if necessary. You answer questions. You get to know them. You figure out inventory. You do X, Y, Z. You give them a discount because that's what helps them actually sell, or whatever the case is, right? Like you're moving through it. You're prospecting for future business. You're upselling. You're downselling. You're cross advertising. You're cross selling. That is a sequence in and of itself. Now, for example, the reason why I don't like the idea of breaking it off is if you have a welcome sequence, then you have an email or two giving them a welcome. Then you have a sales sequence that, that might have a welcome as well, in which case then this person is being funneled in and getting almost 2 welcome emails, which is weird.
Yeah.
So basically the best way to give an example of that is if I was selling to you face to face and I said, hey, welcome in, my name's Julio, thank you so much for being here, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're going through that initial one. Then you leave and you come back the next day. You're like, man, I like that Julio guy. Let's go and get X, Y, and Z, whatever it was, right? You come back in, and instead of just being like, hey, guys, what's up? Instead of doing that, I go, hey, welcome. My name's Julio.
Right.
And here at blank company, this is what we talk about, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly you feel like, oh, you didn't care about me at all.
Yeah, you don't remember me.
I came in here yesterday, and suddenly it's an awkward moment where you're like, yeah, I remember you. I remember what the company stands for. I remember X, Y, and Z.
You told me this yesterday.
And it kind of feels like, suddenly you're like, I kind of want to leave now.
Yeah.
So
that's understanding how to sequence as well and setting things up. So the best answer to this is you need to sit back and understand your strategy.
Yeah.
Because if we're going to take us as an example, one of our funnels includes people coming into a webinar and from there going through a course upsell sequence. Over time, as we build out like the 5-minute copywriter and have a whole bunch of different offers and things lined up, that's going to branch out. And after they go through the course, maybe they'll have a downsell to the 5-minute copywriter. If they decide to buy the course, maybe they'll have an upsell to coaching. Like
an upsell, by the way, doesn't necessarily have to. I'm sorry. I'll go ahead and let you finish, and then I'll make my point.
So yeah, the basic thing is you have to understand what your overall goal is so that you can structure an entire funnel that makes sense. If you start to piecemeal and have like 30 different opt-ins and keep them, like I highly recommend doing that for testing purposes to see what's going to stick. But if you have 100 different opt-ins and it never goes anywhere, it's just like one single getting their information and then upselling them like one thing, that's the end of that customer lifetime value. So being able to sit back and say like, okay, I need to structure this so that this customer comes in and they get this offer. And if they buy it, they do this. But if they don't buy, then this happens. And you move them along a path that's comfortable for that particular customer, which you'll understand if you know the personality type, right?
Right.
So this needs to be drawn out on paper, and we literally do this. We will sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and draw out what we want our funnel to look like based on what we have to offer, the time we have available, and we want to put into it.
Yeah, we like to do it on paper first, and then what I'll do is I'll recreate it like on the internet. Mm-hmm. Either you can use the free version, which I think is MindMup, but what I use is Funnelytics, and another one called Giru. And the reason why I like Giru is it's sort of like, it's a funnel-based thing, but you're able to add inputted data. So I can put like, we have a 40% open rate here, we have a 20% open rate here, we have a conversion rate here. And by putting all that in, it analyzes it as you go through and tells you, assuming this is all stays true, this is what your monthly income should be with these conversion rates and et cetera. It's just like another way to add numbers to the plan as opposed to just having the plan and then not being able to kind of analyze where you're at.
Right. And if you jump into the group, you can also look at some of the other comments and things. Tamara Glick is another copywriter that works really hard, and she has helped a lot of people using the basic structure that most of us are familiar with. Yeah. Let's see. Chrissy says, I do have a welcome sequence that leads to a specific item at a one-time cost. If they don't purchase, then they go to a next sequence of a downsell offer. Exactly what we were talking about. So it doesn't have to be overly complicated, right? And Chrissy even said, as you read through the comments, we had a conversation about how she had her initial offer was something that was really easy to make, and she changed that to a best-selling offer. And that is really important because you're paying attention to what your customers want at that point, and you're structuring a funnel that they're responding to. So this isn't going to be a one and done. This is going to be something that you test and refine over time again and again. Ellen says it sounds overwhelming. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. So what I recommend is writing down what your offers are, what your tiers of pricing are. So if you're making jewelry, what's your premium offer that's a bestseller, your mid-tier, and your low-cost offer that's a bestseller. And then creating a sequence based on that includes brand message and things like that. Right? What's your opinion on that?
No, I would have to agree. I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's an initial, for example, like the testing and stuff, it takes a little bit of time depending on what you want to establish your, to know that your customer's personality type and whatnot. But that doesn't, again, it's a 5-week test, and it doesn't require 10 hours, every day or anything like that. It's pretty simple. Again, we'll send you the link when our branding video comes out.
Yeah.
It's just in a couple days. But to do that 5-week test is pretty simple. It can, you can extend it as far as you want, right? If you want to know for sure, you want to get more data, analyze it even deeper, you can turn that 5-week test into a 5-month test. But just the idea was that we could do it as quickly as 5 weeks and get at least some sort of representation of results. But yeah, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. I do understand that, though, that it can feel overwhelming to say, like, man, there's a lot more to marketing than I maybe anticipated. And that's just business in general, though, like so many people, here, let me put this down for a second. So many people, I'm not saying you can't gain sales from organic traffic. Obviously you can, but so many people have been told this lie, basically, that, like, yeah, if you just spend like $20 on Facebook advertising, you'll make your money back plus some. And you'll figure out your analytics really quick, and but that just isn't necessarily the case. There are certainly some people who have mastered it, who know what they're doing, who have been at this for years, who can get down to like $1 conversion rate or something like that, and then they sell their product for $5 or $10 or $20 or whatever it is.
But they don't have super low budgets that they invest in ads either.
Right. So here's a little quick tip for you. Anytime you listen to like these podcast shows, and they're still good shows, they still give you great information, like the Social Media Examiner, things like that. They always use terms like us, we, because they're trying to connect as an audience, right? And they go, well, what about when we have people like us have a small budget? What they mean by small budget is like $15,000 to spend that month. Like, they don't mean $50, When people say like, oh, well, this so-and-so runs a small business, they don't mean that they're at home like we are right now, us two, at a desk. They mean that they have 45 employees. You have to think and analyze what you're being told. You can't just consume the content and
take it to be true.
And take it to be complete truth, right? Because the idea behind it is that they're still trying to connect. When someone like Russell Brunson says, people like us want to, don't have all the ability to spend money like crazy or whatever, right? Who is us, right? Like, are we talking about people who are barely making ends meet who want to become entrepreneurs? Are we talking about people who make $100,000 a year? Or are we talking about people like him who make millions a year? Like, where does the us start to play into it? Because what I'm being sold is that you think you're like me and I make X dollars a year, but you make 10 times that. So how representative of us is there? Do you understand where I'm coming from? Do you actually understand what my struggle is.
Right.
It's a little different to remember what struggle was when you were 19 versus what the current day struggle is now. But anyways, that's a sort of a different topic.
It is, and we can definitely get into our thoughts and things on that for, you know, people with like us with an actual small budget, right? So that will be for another webinar, another live we can put on. So just drop any questions and comments you have about that so that we have it in the back of our minds and we can start working toward it.
Right. Okay, so let's go over Mrs. Glick.
Tamara, she's another copywriter, so we love her input. And she breaks this down. She likes to, they're different but related. So this is, again, taking a step back and looking at this from a strategy perspective.
Yeah.
You can have a pure welcome sequence, she says, which joins the newsletter, and it doesn't have a traditional upsell that they might appreciate a welcome discount on that first purchase, right? I really like that. Then a thank you sequence, so thank them for the purchase, and then confirm the purchase. So this is important here, confirming the purchase. Also, what is that called? When you reinforce?
Reinforcing the sale.
Yeah. So that's really important as well, that a lot of people skip. When you thank someone for a purchase, reinforce that sale by telling them how much they're going to love this when they get it.
Yeah, how it's going to change their life, how it's going to do X, how it's going to do Y. You know, like you want to, it stops the people from asking for refunds super quickly, especially if you have a high ticket item. Because,
right. There's a lot of buyer remorse, especially
Exactly.
with high ticket items. So to get in front of that and address, again, we're addressing an objection before it comes up. Just reinforce it and remind them why they bought it, right? Readdress those objections and how this is going to solve their problem, help them emotionally transform in what way.
And for those of you that are doing custom orders that do like 10 weeks, 12 weeks or whatever, I would actually set this up as part of your sequence, right? Like don't just do it once, reinforce that sale 2, 3, 4 times, send them an email specifically, you know, like have them as part of like, you can segment them in your email list as like, you know, custom customer or whatever. And they can still get your regular emails, but then they get specifically get an email once a week that says, hey, blank, first name, right? Just wanted to let you know that your order is currently being processed. We melted the gold or whatever this week. It looks beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Love so-and-so.
Right, and you can generalize this as well, especially if you have a single type of product like jewelry, for example.
Yeah.
The process you use to create is probably going to be pretty similar for all or most of what you have.
Yeah.
So you can create what seem like personalized, and they are personalized because you're going well above and beyond most everyone else by doing this. You can create that personalized thank you sequence that they get, keeping them updated on the process in a more detailed way.
Yeah, and then...
And that upsell, downsell sequence. So again, did they abandon cart? This is really important. A lot of people don't do anything with an abandoned cart sequence, or they only have the one email that goes out 24 hours after somebody leaves. Continue that sequence the same way you would the thank yous.
Right. It's think of an abandoned cart as prospecting for those of you that have sold, you know, physically. Those are people you want to try to get on, especially if you have a high ticket item. Like that's the way I always like to think of it is, would this conversation that I have with this customer for 15 minutes or whatever be worth $500? Mm-hmm. And if that is the case and you go, yeah, you know what, yeah, then go ahead and also a part of your abandoned cart can be like, hey, I would love to jump onto a 15-minute free consultation with you, talk to you about the jewelry that you wanted, that you know, when you initially got this custom order, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Why? Because at that point, then you're able to really sell to them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And again, if you think of it, instead of thinking like, oh, it's another customer I have to talk to, instead think like, if I can close this customer in 15 minutes, because they didn't abandon cart, so they should be either warm or hot for your product, right? There's something that is not working for them, and you should do your best to figure that out. And that may be price, that may be, you know, whatever the case is, that their objection, you need to figure out how do you deflect it or how do you overcome it. And from there, allow them to process the order. Mm-hmm. So again, is that phone conversation worth $500, $1,000, $7,000 to you? If it is, that's should be part of your sequencing. And then just really quick, one thing I wanted to mention was, even though Tamara had some fantastic points, once again, my recommendation or my thought process behind it is that they are not separate sequences. Your sequence should be based on whatever objective you have. Think of like a Facebook ad objective, right? There's website traffic, conversions, lead generation, brand awareness, whatever. But every single one of them should have a end goal. And if that end goal is a sale, for example, with e-commerce, then you will need to, it all has to have a initial welcome, and then you move them along the process of the sale, warming them up depending on, again, the customer personality. You can figure out how long it takes to warm them up. And then from there, you're upselling, you're downselling, you're cross-selling, you're figuring it. And then, of course, again, then you have the idea of the abandoned carts. Then you have the thank yous. Then you have, whatever the case is.
You can see, like, hearing it, it sounds complicated. But I promise if you draw this out on a piece of paper, for me, because I'm a visual learner.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. So drawing it out on a piece of paper simplifies this so much for me. And it also will show you like where there are potential gaps that you haven't thought through if you're just saying it out loud or thinking it in your head.
Well, and if you go, if you're a course member, all you have to do is open up the 270-page workbook that we have, and there's a funnel section, and you can see the funnel breakdowns of different kinds. And if you want help with them, just feel free to message me, and I can either give you a copy of one that I've created, or I can just help you along with yours personally. But yeah, that's the benefit of being a course member.
That's right. We also have video modules walking you through those breakdowns as well.
Exactly. But yeah, that's the benefit of course members. You get to talk to us a little bit more in depth.
That's right. We need to cut this short now because we've been on for a really long time.
Okay.
I think we're going to come back next week and talk a little bit more about it. Please drop your questions, because if you have more questions, or maybe not next week, but Friday, we can get to the rest of those comments and get deeper into a lot of the other notes we had written down that we haven't gotten to today.
There you go. And remember, if you think this was useful and you know anybody that would enjoy this information, please feel free to share it. There you go.
We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you Friday, same time, same place.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.